Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Coast to Coast Combat Hour, presented by Legends of the Cage MMA. On a weekly basis, we plan to bring you the biggest news in the world of combat sports. I'm your host, Matthew Hawkins, along with my co-host, Ed Carbajal.
Hello.
This weekend, on Friday night, live from the Casino Morongo and live on Axs TV, LFA 36. In the opening bout that evening, we will be seeing Charles Taylor compete versus Corey Turner in the opening televised bout. We're lucky enough to have our first guest, Corey Turner, joining us. Corey, how you doing, brother?
Good, man. How are you?
Great. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. I mean, thanks again. I want to say thanks to Corey because, I know you said you're feeling good and you're ready for Friday and stuff, but usually it's been in my experience during fight week, getting ready for when you try to talk to fighters and do any type of media, they're not in the best mood. So I do really appreciate you taking the time to talk.
That's because they're on shitty diets and their weight cut sucks.
Is there you have any recommendations? Are you doing anything different or new?
Well, Samantha's over here. My girlfriend's got me on a pretty strict diet. It's not just for fighting. If I get fat, she'll leave me. So I got to stay healthy.
And you're fighting at 185?
Yeah, I fight at 185. Yeah.
So what do you know about your opponent for Friday? As far as like his background,
I know he's a wrestler. He's been wrestling for a while. I'm pretty sure he was a collegiate wrestler, and he's only had 3 total MMA fights. You know, I don't know how many wrestling matches he's had, but I know he's only had 3 total fights. He's had 1 amateur fight that was, I think it was a TKO, and then he's had 1 TKO and 1 knockout in his pro. But I mean, I looked at the guys that he fought, and his first guy that he fought was supposed to fight me last year, and when I was 1-0 and wouldn't do it. So not to take anything away from him, because he's an established wrestler, and I've been stalking him on Instagram, so I've been seeing him get down and do his thing. So I mean, it's going to be a good fight. Stylistically, he's pretty much the same as me. He likes to throw a bunch of weird kicks, and with the exception is his wrestling is probably a little bit ahead of mine, but I train full-time jiu-jitsu with Vinny Magalhaes and Mike Pyle and Corey Hendricks and all those guys. So, I mean, my jiu-jitsu is pretty slick.
I noticed online your record, your pro record is 1-1. It looked like your amateur record was 4-2. Is that fairly accurate?
No, I was 7-2 as an amateur.
7-2. Okay, so it wasn't updated.
So I was just going to ask. I actually looked at your record too. And I know overall you got a lot of wins by submission. So now you just said why you train with Viggy Magalhaes and all those guys. What's you hold a rank in jiu-jitsu? How long have you been grappling?
So I didn't really get my rank. I didn't get very much rank because I didn't put the gi on until 2016. End of 2015, about November of 2015 is when I started doing gi a lot. And, Benny was at the gym, and 2016, John Wood, the head coach of my gym, he made a policy. He's like, if you're not at least a blue belt in gi jiu-jitsu, then I won't get you a fight. So I went out and I started training 2-3 times a day jiu-jitsu. And then I did 3 jiu-jitsu competitions where I won. And then I had 2 fights in between that, and I won everything and I finished everything. I won everything on submission. And then my last jiu-jitsu tournament, Vinny promoted me to blue belt.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Just a follow up to that. So you said you do jiu-jitsu tournaments. Have you ever considered doing any of or have you done like Fight to Win Pro or any of those advantage submission only type? Because that's like becoming popular too. As far as like to supplement your time in between fights.
Oh, when I feel my level is up there, when I could, because those guys are full-time jiu-jitsu guys, you know. And as much as I would like to, right now I'm focusing on MMA. 2-3 years I might feel different when I can get in the jiu-jitsu aspect more of it. But it's definitely an option.
What got you into the fight game?
Bodybuilding.
That's funny.
5 years ago, I was 245 pounds.
Yeah.
On my way up to 315. And I wanted to work on my flexibility because my hips were tight and my back was tight. And I was in a lot of pain from, deadlifting and squats. So I went to the gym and I signed up for a 3-day trial. I did a Muay Thai class, and just so happened nobody showed up that night. So it was basically a one-on-one, a private lesson. And I signed up that night, and I started training jiu-jitsu twice a day, Muay Thai twice a day. I accidentally fell onto the MMA team, and that was a pretty funny story. One of the old owners told me that I can come to the class. I was like, all right, I can come to class. And I showed up, and John Wood was there, and he's like, what the fuck are you doing in my class? And I was like, oh, Jason said I can come over here. He's like, absolutely not. And he's like, how long you been training? I said, oh, about 8 months. I do jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai twice a day. And he's like, all right, you got one class. And that was 4.5 years ago, and he never asked me to leave. So,
oh, nice. Good for you, man. As this is your first fight at LFA, I mean, and Dana White last summer called that one of the developmental leagues for the UFC. Is that your end game as far as like where you want your career to go?
I think it's everybody's end game. It's not necessarily because you can make the most money at UFC. It's because you get the most recognition and you get you get the most exposure. So you can take your UFC fights and you can, a lot of the guys. I can't remember his name. The black athletic guy. What's his name? But anyway, he Mr. Perfect. What's his name?
Phil Davis.
Phil Davis, yes. He went over to, he made his career at UFC, and then he went over to Bellator to make money. And I think that's what a lot of guys are doing. And, it'd be great, but the end game is just to have fun while I'm doing it.
When you started, did you go directly to Syndicate, or was there another gym that you started at?
I went to all the gyms. I looked around. I, compared their coaching staff. I compared their at the time their members, and it was the environment really that locked me down at Syndicate. It was, everybody trained together. There was no drastic separation. A lot of the other gyms too, if you have no experience but you're a big body, that's all you'll be is a big body. If you're, somewhat athletic and you can do some things, then they'll pair you with somebody who's going to beat the shit out of you 3-4 times a week, and they're going to go off to be a superstar. Meanwhile, you're, over here trying to catch crumbs and beg for fights.
Just a quick question because of something you said about, you had mentioned how like guys are screwing up their weights with, cause they have shitty diets. And, then you talked about, having fun while you're competing now. When you're looking at the sport when you're not fighting and you're looking at it as a fight fan, what do you think as far as the state of mixed martial arts as a whole looks like now with the growth of the sport and everything, with all the options to watch versus how it used to be like 4 years ago?
I love the free market. It gives guys an advantage to go out there and display their skills and be able to showcase and reach people and have exposure and connect with different people all across the world. There's several different Asian leagues. There's several different leagues here in the States. You can pretty much go anywhere and you can join a league, or have a home to fight. So, I think it's a great thing. I think a lot of guys are having a lot of fun with it, and, and some guys take it too serious, but that's them.
Are you a fan of the sport in general? Do you sit around on the weekends and watch fights? I know you got your hands full with a lot of stuff going on, but any fighters that you like to watch or that catch your attention?
I try to watch as much as I can. I got 2 teenage girls and an infant baby, so my hands are pretty much full, and I got a significant other that keeps the rest of my time occupied. So, I try, she's into it too. She wasn't ever into it until she started dating me. And now, she tries to stomach it. It's still too bloody for her, but, she tries to do it for me because.
How hard is it to juggle everything? That's a lot right there. And don't you have a business too?
I do. I'm a marketing consultant. So, everything, it's a constant juggle. But when you have good support at home and you have a good foundation, I mean, you can. When I start overreaching and doing things that taking too much on my plate, Samantha sits me down and we have a what's important. We're always working towards a goal, and if we start sidetracking with different things and getting my focus all blurred up, then we sit down and have that one-on-one that most people are afraid to have with their significant other.
So this fight on LFA, this is probably the most high-profile fight you've had in your career, right? I mean, it's on a big network with Axs. Is it something that's are there any jitters as far as being on TV on that scale for you, or it's not a thought at all?
No, the most nervous fight I've ever had was my very first fight, and I'll never be that nervous again. There's always nerves involved, but it's not because all these people are watching or it's going to be on TV or something. It's am I gonna split? Am I gonna duck? Am I gonna walk into a knee? What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? Those are things I'm all in my head about. But as far as it being on TV, I mean, I just think that's freaking pretty badass. Who doesn't want to be on TV? And I get to punch somebody in the face while I do it. So
I don't want to be on TV. Look at his face.
Face made for radio.
But Matt and I were saying just when we did you watched the first episode, that's how we got in touch with you through the MMA community forum. But we were saying last week how a lot of times these cards that aren't that high profile wind up being these dynamite must-see fights, and like the UFC London event was like that last week. And I find personally, because I get the LFA, I get the highlights sent to me after every event, and I find that those cards are always like on fire. So I mean,
it's like college and pro. You know what I mean? It's like college and pro. When you're watching college football, man, those guys are putting their heart into it.
Yeah,
they love the sport. And then you get to the UFC and the bigger shows. The fight week shows, the beginning of the year shows, the end of the year shows. There's so much pressure and it's so high profile that everybody just wants to perform, and they're so anxious because they want to, and 9 times out of 10 they don't. There's the people that are consistently good and they consistently perform, but when you're trying to carry all that weight with that huge brand behind you, it kind of it sucks in a way, but sometimes it's a good problem to have. But for these smaller shows, man, it's all about the heart. It's like I came up through Tough Enough. It's the local amateur organization out here. And it's one of the biggest amateur organizations, but like they put on professional type shows. So I've been in a professional environment since I started my fight career. So it's just another day in the office.
Yeah, they do put on a good show over there. I've had the chance to attend 2 or 3 of their productions, and I think it was at the Orleans Hotel, and they have a nice setup going on over there. We were talking
Orleans for a while.
I know they have them in Mesquite and a couple other spots. I've seen that as well.
They've gotten even better. So I mean, they're just they're second to none when it comes to the amateur organization.
Speaking of LFA and some of their fighters, last week we brought up Nick Newell. I don't know how much you're aware of him. He's the fighter with born with one arm.
Yeah.
Do you have any opinion on that? We kind of kicked it around last week. The pros and cons of potential superstardom to maybe not the greatest reflection on the sport if it were to go negative for him.
I mean, but how negative is it going to be if he steps into a ring with a guy who just puts a hurting on him, and he exposes the fact that he only has, one defensive limb, basically, cover his head. But, 100% the dude has the most heart. He gets in there and he freaking rear naked chokes people, and I think he's an inspiration and a role model. He doesn't let his, I don't even want to call it a disability because it's really not, he doesn't let it stop him, or he doesn't let it hinder him. So I don't feel you can't really take anything negative out of it unless you're really, really trying to.
Yeah.
Yeah. We pretty much agreed that the guy deserves every opportunity that every other fighter coming up deserves. Yeah, the only negative that I had brought up is if he were to get beat with the world of social media and how news passes a potential photo of a one-armed fighter in the UFC. I know that the sport's grown probably beyond that. That would be the only thing. You get a couple news organizations that never follow the UFC all year long, and all of a sudden they've got a target, and something like that.
Yeah.
I don't think it's anything that would really hinder the sport. I'd be curious. I wouldn't want it necessarily to happen, but I'd just be curious what happened.
I think the fight community is too deep to let something like that. You know, if somebody went out and said something like that, that's like there's kids, young kids and adults that are, paralyzed from the waist up or waist down or have no legs that wrestle. There's a legless wrestler and he's a freaking beast.
Yeah, I've seen him.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's only negative if you really, 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 really reach out there and just make some attachment that's not even there.
That's a good point, because there are football players. I mean, we just saw somebody in the NFL Combine who was missing an arm as well.
Yeah.
And he actually ran the quickest 40 time of a linebacker in something like 25 years ever. Yeah, and did 25 reps of 225. Some incredible number for a guy.
There's power lifters with a missing leg. There's a veteran power lifter that I follow. I can't remember his name right now, but he's a power lifter and he's got no leg. And he lost, what's his name? Derek Walita. He lost his leg from an IED, and he's a power lifter, and all he does is he's all over social, and he talks about it all the time, how he doesn't give a shit, and people are stupid if they have anything negative to say about his disability that he doesn't even feel is a disability.
Well, trolling in general online is just is stupid.
It's a whole new level. It's a profession now.
Yeah, and you're right, and people are getting famous off of it. Just looking at because we had talked about the evolution of the sport, and one of the things I've noticed, I covered Bellator when they were at Mohegan Sun, and Taiwan Claxton, he was the first one I heard say it, and a couple of other younger fighters were saying it. When I'm an old man, just so FYI, I'm older than all you guys, but
you're only as old as you feel.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, well, I certainly chase the young ones, but anyway, so I've been hearing Taiwan Claxton was the first guy I remember saying it this year, and it seems like 2018. There's a lot of fighters they're talking about. I want to. He's like, I want to fight 5 times in 2018, and I remember a time when if you fought 2 or 3 times in a year, that was considered a lot. So is there a max number for you where it starts to break? You really start to feel the wear and tear of combat and training and camp, especially with all that you said you're juggling with your family and all that and the business.
It becomes an issue. I take pretty good care of my body. I do a mostly paleo diet, a lot of whole stuff. I don't eat a lot of processed stuff. I pound water all day long, so my body can hold up. It's not about. It's when, like I was talking about earlier, it's when I start losing focus and just trying to pile too much on my plate. Because I could fight 8 times in a year and be good, or I could fight twice in a year and fill that in between time with training and launching new ventures and taking on more clients for my consulting business. Or we have a few home businesses here that we're working on, a few things in the works. Things of that nature. My plates, there's always something to do.
Yeah,
and fighting isn't my main focus.
Okay.
Fighting is an afterthought. It's once all the chores are done, then I get to dessert is fighting.
Is there any way that you ever integrate like your marketing business with what you do in the sport at all? I mean, do you sponsor yourself or anything like that? Like, is there any way you've mixed? Because marketing, you could market anything.
Right. So. I do. I'm actually putting it together a fighter marketing seminar. I'm working with Sparta Combat League, and in May I'm going to go do a seminar up there to help the fighters promote for their fight and help draw in the crowd and just help the fighters in general understand the game of social media. It's a lot of these guys have a misconception of what they need to be posting or what they think people want to be posting. And I have a program, and I'm going to go up there and just do some stuff, work with those guys. And that's mainly the only thing I cross over my marketing stuff. And if I'm fighting or training or something and somebody asks me a marketing question, and then it's there too.
Now you have 11 pro fights. When was your first pro fight? We were just speaking about fights in a year. When did you first have your fight?
I've only had 2 pro fights.
Or I'm sorry, but you've had 11 total fights.
Yeah. Overall, yeah.
What's the most you've had in a year?
I think 4 or 5. I think it was 4. I fought in July or January, then I fought in March, then I fought in September, September, then November.
So you've had a full year before, so you know what it'll contain in the body. Interesting.
Wow. I was actually supposed to fight more, but people were dropping out in between the March and the September times that I fought. I was supposed to fight, I think, 2 or 3 more times, but people were backing out.
How's your experience been with LFA so far? I've heard good stuff about them.
I've been working with Mark Berry, the promoter, and it's just been seamless. He's been helping me make sure I get all my medicals done. As soon as I get all my stuff done for my eye exam, whatever, I send it over to him. He takes care of it. It's been he even showed up to the gym last week to make sure everything was on track, and he's making sure we're taken care of when we're out in California. So it's been really good. It's so far so good. I mean,
the just one of the things you mentioned about marketing. Do you think one of the bad things to do is trash talk? Like it seems like there's guys forcing trash talk almost to the point that it's like a gimmick, and it's like a forced gimmick.
I think that's a machismo thing, and it's just trying to build an interest. And if people aren't interested, it doesn't matter how much trash talk you do, they're not going to be interested. Or they're going to be interested to be like, I don't like that guy. I want to watch him get his face knocked off. It draws in, like they say, there's no such thing as bad PR, but there's such thing as negative connotation. And when you're that attitude, like Cody Garbrandt, he's a good dude. But he's like way over aggressive for no reason. I know they were building a lot of hype for that fight, but it's just, I feel it's too much sometimes, and I'm not one of those type of dudes. And I'm not trying to be Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather over here. I'm just,
please, why'd you have to say those names? But what's your opinion on that? Since you brought it up, now you got to talk about it.
I think it was great for both sports. I think it was great for a crossover for MMA, because a lot of boxers, they honestly do believe that MMA guys can't make it in the boxing world. And one of the core foundations of MMA is boxing. Like, you have to learn boxing. A lot of guys don't. Guys that come over from wrestling and jiu-jitsu, they really harbor on those things. But for a guy like kids coming up, they're going to be savages.
Oh, man.
They're training since they were 10 years old, and they start with boxing. All the kids now are starting with boxing. Then they go to wrestling. Then they go to jiu-jitsu. Then they're in MMA. So I think it was good for the sport.
Yeah, it was. I spoke with it's funny you're saying that, because Ryan Stoddard, who's the president of Victory Fighting Championship, said the exact same thing right before all that happened. So, and when you hear guys like you talk about that are in the business at the level you're in, at the level he's in, and when you hear him say that and you think about it, it makes a lot of sense, because it's bringing a lot of new eyeballs to the sport too, and that helps guys like you, coming through on TV.
10 years ago, when they were calling it, the beer drinker sport, when Chuck Liddell was coming into the ring half drunk and knocking people out, it was like, oh, well, that's cool. But they didn't see the behind the scenes of it. They didn't know all the training that went on. They didn't know the countless hours that are spent in wrestling and judo and karate and jiu-jitsu and, sparring. It's a full-time sport. It's not just, I'm going to toss a beer back and go smack somebody in a rear naked. There's a lot more to it. And I think it exposed, like you said, boxing fans to, like, wow, these people are conditioned. They are athletes.
Yeah.
Well, I think that was definitely the positive. McGregor being able to last 9 rounds and putting up a good showing for himself.
Oh, yeah. I think he did great.
Yeah, I think that was definitely the positive take from there.
I think the only people who expected him to win was him in the country of Ireland.
Yeah, he's got. We were saying that last week that he's got some interesting fans, but as far as like in your fights, so the type of fan base that you have, I mean, have you picked up a big following out where you guys are? I mean, obviously, I'm here in New Jersey, and I only heard your name when I found out you were fighting at LFA, and I did my homework on you. So, and I mean, outside of looking like Vitor Belfort, what type of like marketing have you done for yourself to garner more fans for Friday?
I just put myself out there, social really. I'm not really like I said, I'm not your average fighter. I'm a family man. So I mean that's what I promote, and a lot of people who I interact with on a daily basis follow myself and my girlfriend because of the stuff that we post about our family and enlightenment and working on your mental capacity as well as your physical. And I have a lot of fans in that realm, and then you have your loyal, tough enough fans that know who I am. So
cool. The I had just started following you on Twitter when we set this up last minute. It doesn't look like you posted too much on there, or you just do it through Instagram. Like what?
Yeah, I do it through Instagram. I'm not a keyboard warrior, so I know Twitter is for the hecklers, and it just updates too much for me to be involved. I like my Instagram because it's just pictures and a few words, but and I can share it from to Twitter and to Tumblr and to Facebook from Instagram. So that's mainly what I'm on.
So what are you thinking for? I mean, I know you're a submission guy and you have a lot of submission wins for Mr. Johnson this Friday. What do you do predictions, or do you want to call it, or just let it flow?
No, I like flowing. I'm gonna let it flow because you never know where it's gonna end up ever. So, like I said, I know he's a wrestler, but there's clips on his Instagram that show him, standing up and banging with dudes. So he could end up wanting to trade hands, or he could try to shoot and try to take me down. That I got to be slick with the jiu-jitsu. So wherever he feels he wants to take it, I've already gone there and I've already dominated. So wherever he wants to go, I'm ready.
How much weight do you still have to cut by Thursday?
After I eat dinner tonight, probably like 8 pounds.
Oh, so nothing.
Yeah. You see me drinking water, if I stop drinking water, then I'll lose 2 or 3 pounds right there. So like I don't like those big cuts. I don't understand the guys who do that, just because they want a little bit of size advantage. It's not worth your health. It takes so much off your life to cut 20, 30, 20, 25 pounds is, a lot of weight to try to cut it.
Do you have any idea how much weight your opponent's going to be cutting?
I don't know. I've seen him. I've seen his leading up to, and I've seen his day of, and it looks like he cuts a fair amount of weight. So even if you're cutting from 200, that's still a lot of weight. That's 15 pounds that you have to cut. That's a full weight cut at night. That's cutting off water the night before. That's early morning weight cut. So it's still a lot of punishment on your body. 15 pounds. That's why I like to stick around. 8 to 10 is my max.
That's what you walk around only 8 to 10 heavier. You're saying?
Yep.
Oh, that's
I walk
good.
around basically a fight weight.
Oh, that's nice, man. Because I'm trying to get to 185 just for my own health, and I mean I ruined that on St. Patrick's Day.
I was gonna say stop boozing it, stop drinking soda, and change your diet.
Wow, thanks. I'm drinking soda just for the caffeine because I'm 3 hours ahead of you guys to stay awake. But all right, cool. I'm gonna write that down. No soda. No
hey, and look up the paleo diet.
Is that going to be part of your? Well, I guess you could market a diet. I mean, you can market anything.
Well, it's not really a diet. It's just not eating processed foods, dairy, or wait, hold on. What is it? It's no processed foods. It's whole foods like whole vegetables.
No grains.
No dairy, no grain, and whole foods. So whole vegetables, whole fruits.
Prepare to fight, you live to fight
Oh,
always.
there you go. Forgot. I don't prepare to fight. I live to fight. That's why.
All right, cool. Before we close out, do you have any sponsors or anybody you want to shout out? Like, let people know where to find you, your business, and all that stuff.
Yeah, if you want to look me up, I'm on Instagram, Corey Turner, Corey_Turner 1118 on Instagram. Corey, because some people like to forget the E. Like to thank Alarmco. I'm working with them as a sponsor, as well as Tough Enough. You know, they basically raised me as MMA Fight World. Syndicate MMA, that's my home, away from home. Unbranded Supply Co. John Wood, for being the Jedi Master that he is. You know, all my training partners at Syndicate MMA, and my lovely significant other, Samantha, for her ridiculous amount of support and time away from home and taking care of a 2-month-old sometimes when I'm gone all day training, and my 2 little girls who are my motivation outside of Samantha and Bronson.
Well, I want to remind everybody, thank you for coming on Fight Week. You got a fight in about 72 hours from now.
Yes,
It'll be live on Axs TV. That'll be Legacy Fighting Alliance, LFA 36. Corey, thanks for joining us, man. Thanks for being our first guest on our show.
Thanks for having me, man. Anytime. I'll do it anytime.
Thank you, man. Much appreciated.
For sure.
All right. See you guys.